But 1,000 years, we were not in the race of the technology.
Mm.
Today, first time, when technology race is being run, we are at the head table.
There has been talk about this present tariff war since President Trump has taken over administration in the US. So, how do you see this entire tariff war unfolding? Do you see we are entering into more area of protectionism?
Whenever a new power tries to come up, the other competing powers, however sympathetic they may have to, they would have been to that particular society's cause, they start feeling threatened, and that's where the reaction comes. Geopolitics eats economics for breakfast. You need to basically worry about geopolitics first. Donald Trump had not come, somebody similar would have come. Again, why we have come where we have come is because of the way we have handled our society. It's also because of the technology inculcation which has happened, and the demographics which is creating demand and of course ability to produce. So those are the things where India has actually a great opportunity today. We are the smartest people today. Why? Is because the society has become technology oriented. And why? Because we have young people. And young people learn newer things. I think it's a wonderful time to be in as an Indian. And every investor has to understand that the wealth gets created not by noise. It is by signals. Market capitalization has gone to literally 400 lakh crore, 100 times more. And number of people has gone up from 10 lakh to now 11 crore, right? And 8.5 crore households, which means 20% of all households now invest in India's stock market directly or indirectly via mutual fund also.
Namaskar. We are at this special conversation, the wonderful facility of National Stock Exchange. These days, there are a lot of discussions about the market, the way markets are behaving, and post Pahalgam attack, there are more uncertainties. So, a person, in a way, who has been performing the role of a regulator, observer, fair play umpire of this entire market scenario is the MD and CEO of National Stock Exchange, Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan ji. So Ashish ji, very welcome and thanks for sparing time to talk to Organizer. Ashish ji, first of all, because we are still coming out of this Pahalgam attack shock, and then the post developments, war related talks. So first of all, how do you see this scenario and what kind of impact do you see on the market?
In a way, the event happened, and it's a sad event for the society as a whole. At the same time, the messages each group has to take are different. And so they must work on their side of the activities. And at the same time, the civil society, the normal society has to start now rebuilding lives of the people who have been affected, the families who have been affected. And of course, the international repercussions and everything else has to be kept in mind that situation is different.
So NSE also has played a role.
Absolutely. For us, we have played a minor role in a way. Whatever, I think we have announced 1 crore rupees, it comes to 4 lakh rupees per family, which is just to sort of reduce the difficulties, because I think mainly the male members, earning members have been sort of killed. And that is where for us, what NSE has done, any right-minded Indian organization should do. But more importantly for me, the way the society needs to now rebuild itself and also ensure that such incidents, the probability will always be a non-zero. But how do we minimize? And for me, there also If you look back at the past, the situations were different. If you look at today, the situation is different. And I would give a lot of credit to uh, Prime Minister Mr. Modi also and his team for last 10 years of making that international impact. And of course, India's economic growth under his leadership has been phenomenal. So today, India will be heard more than before. That is my current hypothesis.
What we had seen in 2008 in Mumbai, and now what we are seeing in terms of responses drastically. Yes, yes. But sir, this is not a situation, isolated situation when we talk about the international geopolitics and geoeconomics. There has been talk about this present tariff war, and since uh, President Trump has taken over administration in the U.S., and now there is a talking, going talk about U.S.-China tariff war. As a market regulator, as a market observer, and you are one of the few people in India who have been associated with the uh, stock market since its inception almost. So, how do you see this uh, uh, entire tariff war unfolding? Do you see we are entering into more area of protections? And how should investor look at this entire scenario?
The way I look at us, also look at history. What happened and where similar situations arising, say, in the immediate past or distant past, and why they happened, what happened then. So if you look back post World War II, there was the Bretton Woods system and World Bank, IMF, the national reserve banks or federal reserves across the world. And it was a framework that came out of a Bretton Woods, right? And
Then there was a general agreement on trade and tariff, and that.
and yeah, that came much later. But basically, for me, the way I look at it is, America was not the number one till World War II. It became world number one immediately after World War II because it was preparing itself from 1920s and 1930s. It was preparing itself. It had a much larger area, but it was also including many people coming from across Europe and various other places. And it was like a melting pot, and which created many new inventions, including, of course, atom bomb, which decisively closed the World War II. And that preparation, but also the upside which people were seeing in US in those days in 1944, 1945, uh, that this country has now taken the leadership. And that is for me was a decisive factor. Before that, British pound sterling was the
Yeah.
reserve currency.
Hmm.
Uh, and so you can see
Switch
that was the
dollar.
switch over to dollars, and it was still gold backed. And then immediately post World War II, they took up two projects. One was revival of Germany, which in a way Europe took as a part of them, uh, and they wanted to rebuild it. And similarly,
Japan.
out of guilt, because of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, they had to do it for Japan. And so both the countries were allowed better terms, freer access, more than freer access to the Western world, and that's how they came about. And if you see, neither Germany nor Japan had military
Hmm.
because Germany was under NATO, which is again under US. Japan is the fully outsourced security to US. So effectively, they were not security threats to US. But when Japan specifically started coming up, because they are in a way different race, right? Whereas Germany is more of the same. Right?
Anglo-Saxon.
And so if you look at Japan, 1980s, it started building up that you need to bring down Japan's sort of production industrialization because they're exporting too much. And so new tariffs and new other things were created. And till now, after I think 1985 or 1986 was the highest level of Nikkei index, which probably till now has not been reached. In fact, 60-70% is still going on after 40 years.
Absolutely.
So you can see how whenever a new power tries to come up, the other competing powers, however sympathetic they may have to, they would have been to that particular society's cause, they start feeling threatened, and that's where the reaction comes. But even then, in 1945, 1972, when the gold backing was taken over, same time, there was a Cold War going. And uh, China was a very secluded country. It did not talk to nobody except Russia. And America and Europe were trying to bring out China from the orbits of Russia. And so their handmaiden was Pakistan. Pakistan was basically making deals with various European powers and also US. And that's how they got even Simla Accord done in their favor.
CENTO was signed 53 itself, and then 71 basically the Kissinger diplomacy that
So
changed everything.
for me, 71 Kissinger was landed in Pakistan, sent to China. He met Mao Zedong, came back, and then next year, I think 71 or 72, Nixon went. But it was basically then that they decided to now bring up China and give them many more benefits so that the communism is broken. The project of bringing China out and sort of isolating Russia or USSR those days, which was almost literally up to the Germany, Eastern Germany. So it was a very large place, but not very productive. So they succeeded in 1988. The Berlin Wall fell, and 1991 Perestroika and Glasnost. And so for me, that project was what created what is currently the China's and the West's relationship. West was the materially more advanced economy. China was a 2,000-year-old inward-looking situation, and they were very humiliated, like Japanese were during Nagasaki, Hiroshima, but even before that. And so they were trying to see how to learn those science and those technologies. And similarly, China said that the Opium War they lost against Britishers is because they were not good at science, and these guys had moved ahead of them. And that is true with India, but we didn't think it as one society, which we still sometimes or most times don't do. But those guys are like 2,000 years of homogeneity. They wanted to not compete. They first wanted to cooperate, keep their ideas hidden, their intentions hidden. And they are a military power, unlike Japan or Germany. And that's where over last, literally, although 1972 it started, but broadly 1980s onwards, Deng Xiaoping times, it's started coming up. And now in 45 years, the Japanese companies have invested in China, European companies have invested, even American companies have invested in China. Today, China, if you look at any estimate, somewhere between 35 to 40% of all industrial production of the world now happens in China. And that means that whatever we did over last 40 years as India also to improve our industrialization, it could not have succeeded because China was doing whatever it took and the rest of the world was also supporting it. India would have many qualitative and quantitative
Americans had this logic, no, that as happened in the case of USSR, if economy is liberalized, it will automatically lead to political democracy. That was the American logic.
For me, I look at it this way, that geopolitics eats economics for breakfast. You need to basically worry about geopolitics first, because society is more important than the economics. For me, economy or even finance is like, finance literally is like blood in the body. On its own, it's a red liquid. Only when it's in the body, it is useful to the body. But if it becomes on its own, then it has no relevance. It's just a red liquid with no life, right? And so that is where basically somewhere now the things have boiled over same 40 years period. Now, in a way, America, which post World War II, that is basically around 75, 77 years, uh, or 80 years in that matter, uh, basically was the number one very rich country, very productive, giving out doles, giving out even equipments, machinery to whoever, wherever somebody wanted, they could take wars and nobody could take cudgels with them. But other people took advantage of them. They created WTO, they created UN, they created WHO. They were like large-hearted people in a way, conceptually. They allowed people to also they tied their hands and legs also and mouth also, but still they allowed saying, okay, in the interest of everyone, let us go. Our money, our equipments, our everything, but still we will also be bound by whatever you guys say. And in the process, over last 80 years, but last 40 years specifically, they have started feeling very poor. And that's where today, that 1988 onwards, world was what I call unipolar. Now, that unipolarity is going to come down is because the richest and the most powerful is now feeling weaker and less rich. And so it is feeling poorer. And now every time you ask them for a favor, they're asking, what will you do for me in return? And most of the countries in the Committee of Nations are saying, no, that was our birthright to leech on you. And it was your duty, solemn duty to give us whatever we wanted. And it is unfair and you are really sort of bad about it. And for me, it's not Donald Trump. See, I look at it, the history in a different way. That societies evolve as a function of variety of things, the groups, technology, but technology is a larger change which comes. And so in each society, there comes a time when the ideas have to change. And so you look at Narendra Modi's election in 2014. For me, if or Margaret Thatcher in UK or Ronald Reagan and many other places, even Mahatma Gandhi for that matter, they are representations of their people's aspirations and worries. Not only aspirations, worries, and an amalgam of many, many things which that society is going through. And so if Donald Trump had not come, somebody similar would have come. If he had not come this year, somebody else would have come 4 years hence. So because the society has come to a level where it is feeling frustrated. Large part of middle America has no jobs. When they lost jobs initially in 80s, when they started passing on the jobs to China or before that to Japan, they were told, no, it's for the greater good of humanity. And anyway, we are taking care of you using social security. So sit home and do nothing, right? But today, the situation is that $35 trillion or $36 trillion of national debt US has. On top of that, probably $100 trillion of unrealized liabilities on social security and health.
Almost 133% of their GDP.
That is $36 trillion only. But that is what is realized. What is unrealized is the health care.
Yes. The guarantee.
Because above 65, they give free health care. And also the social security. So yesterday, I was looking at the numbers. Broadly speaking, I think 25, 26% goes in the medical related areas of their budget. And similar amounts go into social security. So 50% of their budget currently is just, if you bring forward those liabilities of all people alive and there, it could be, as per estimates, it's almost $100 trillion. So effectively that country, to satisfy or assuage the feeling of working people that their jobs are going, they created a social security which has now become unmanageable because the country has stopped growing that much. If they were growing, the additional liabilities were easy to handle, which is what they were doing. When your country becomes older, it's not able to produce. But when the country also loses its industrial economy, when the country is not able to have that type of demand, it starts feeling poorer. And that's why for me, the current tariff framework is just an outcome of many, many tectonic plates that shift underneath.
Mm-hmm.
This, like how India got created, is again pushing that plate, and Himalayas are manifest out of those things, right? And so similarly, the society is tectonic plates within the society also, but outside also are shifting every day, every moment. And then some such events happen where you think, oh, this was unexpected. It was not, because life,
Some movements were already happening.
and that is where for me now, when you look forward, in India's case specifically, post uh, independence, we were quasi-socialist, we were wanting to be socialist but not able to become socialist, and wanted to have independence, which anyway kept us out of the orbit of Russia. But also, literally, we were on the wrong side of history. And that's where today, first time, when this polarities are changing, the new world economy is going to create it. Economic framework is, what are they calling?
Order.
Plaza Accord 2 is being talked about. It's basically the world is going to go through many changes. It is possible you will have two not so highly segregated like Russia, USSR versus the Europe and West. But broadly, you will have some amount of de-linking of China from rest of the world, not only because of the economic part, but also because of their aggressive military posturing, right? Not only with India, because we think it is only with India, but it's also with Philippines. Yesterday, they took over some island which was disputed from Philippines, and very many. At the same time, they have money, and they have also ensured a lot more
It's true
countries.
with Maldives. It is true with many African countries where they are using even debt.
Did the real
military,
But for me, that's where you will have to see that America, which was very rich in 1970s or 1988, today it is not so rich. At least it is feeling poor. It may be rich, but it is feeling poor. And the other side, there is an ascendant China, which is actually descending, because their demographics suddenly worsened because of one-child policy. And so, I think 2015 was the first time where lesser number of workers came to the job market compared to 2014. And 2024 was the first year where they started having number of people less than the previous year. And for me, that demographics actually determines a lot of economics, because the younger people ask for more material, more newer things, and that's where the demand comes from. And they also produce more because the younger people produce more. And that's where basically the technology, demand, demographics, all three are not in favor of China. So their current aggression, in a way, is while they are actually going down in their economics. And their economics was basically about purely exports and infrastructure.
Right.
Infrastructure has been created way beyond actually their requirement. And that's where their internal balance sheet is almost just the banking system size is 350 to 400% of their economy size. And unlike US, they don't borrow from outside. US is also similar size of banking system vis-a-vis their GDP. India, on the other side, has a banking system which is 60% of its GDP. So it's almost 7 times less leveraged compared to the China, because that also tells you that they have created that infrastructure with very little productivity.
Right.
So capital output ratio, incremental capital output ratio in China is very large now, because you put in a lot of capital, incremental outputs don't come. And that's where basically there are many issues they have. On the other side, if you look at Europe, it has become very left-leaning. And so the ideological differences between US and Europe is not about economics. It's about personality, because one is right-wing, other is left-wing, right? And so that may create some interesting plays. But overall, both are similar cultures, same cultures, similar mindsets, similar countries. And they are going to basically have an interesting play where now multipolarity is going to come into play. And India now is pretty much, as we are talking, yesterday I saw some numbers. India has now become the fourth largest economy as per the numbers that person had given. And so India will also be at the table. In 1947 or 1945, we were under British. When the Bretton Woods happened, our economist had gone, but as a British subject. 1972, we were not on the table. 1988, 91, we were not on the table. Today, we are going to be on the table. And largely, again, why we have come where we have come is because of the way we have handled our society. It's also because of the technology inculcation which has happened, and the demographics which is creating demand, and of course ability to produce. So those are the things where India has actually a great opportunity today. And I think 1,000 years when technology race was run, India was not even in the stadium or even 10 kilometers away. We were the pioneers of technologies 2,000 years back, 1,500 years back. But suddenly we became inward looking. We were more interested in managing our hierarchy, which many times I feel even now we are interested in that rather than evolving as a sort of a more material society.
External aggressions and intervention also pushed us to some
But
extent.
why, if we were scientific, we could have actually, if we had involved ourselves well on science and technology and evolving to attack those people back, then it would not have happened. It's just that we became too inward looking, and then it kept on sort of building on that. But 1,000 years, we were not in the race of the technology. Today, first time, when technology race is being run, we are at the head table. And that is what, many people tell me that we have not developed our AI foundational models and all. And I say, did we develop Unix? Did we develop Pascal or COBOL or Fortran or Python? But we are the largest users. We run the world using those technologies sitting here, right? So we are the smartest people today. Why? Is because the society has become technology oriented. And why? Because we have young people. And young people learn newer things, and they
They'll adapt to the technology faster.
right? And that's where basically India has in the right spot, very sweet spot, and we should be able to take advantage. And I have no doubt this is pretty much the best administration I have seen in my working life, which is acutely aware of the constraints which we work in, but also the opportunities, and they are willing to work hard, whatever it takes, put their points of view forward on every issue, and still maintain that dignified framework, which is India's point alone. Right? And for me, I think it is being well appreciated across the world that this is a country which is not aggressive, which is extremely supportive of everything, which is positive, and also very, very tech savvy. And our diaspora also has helped. Let me tell you, we may think about brain drain and all, but our diaspora has created that image of India, which is way, way different vis-a-vis, say, what we used to have.
Sir, I remember, sorry to interrupt, but I remember because that time I was interacting with many of the diaspora people when post-Pokhran, we came up with those bonds, and suddenly people came out and, they were so proud and they were so that we could do this. And then they reinvested almost in India, and we could, meet all those challenges related to sanctions thanks to our diaspora.
And for me, even their behavior, they are the ideal
Ambassadors.
ambassadors, an ideal minority in any country they stay in. I think it is a credit to India that we have created that law-abiding framework, which is high-tech, which is productive, which is positive, and every Indian today is carrying that hope. I think it's a wonderful time to be in as an Indian.
But again, the fundamental question, how should investors look at this?
So broadly speaking, I'll tell you what happens is investments largely is about predicting future. Because if you think there is going to be returns, you invest. Right? So everyone is trying to predict future. And it's not that all of us do. Whoever is investing, some of us like monthly we put in without thinking. Somebody else is supposed to think for us. And even they may not be so forward looking. But there are people who think, and there are millions of people investing, right? So some of them will go into a particular area and invest, and then they become successful. So other people go behind, That's how this investment framework works. So it's about basically predicting future. And if you look at it from the perspective of predicting future, which country is looking like the one which will have higher growth? See, today, you look at the numbers, you will be surprised. Even now, our per capita income is around $3,000 per person. China is 18,000. America is, I think, 65 or 69,000. Europe is somewhere 44,000. Just the work which an American does on IT, earlier we had to send IT programmers there. But today, basically using telecom lines, you are able to produce and give the service there, right? So effectively from $65,000 to $3,000, there is going to be arbitrage. It's a pure play labor arbitrage, right? What is doable sitting here, why would a person be sort of, why would a person sitting in US produce the same thing? Because it's costing 65,000. Probably few people may do it for coordination, but otherwise economics suggests that it has to come to India, right? And that's where the next 20, 30, 50 years, there is a hypothesis which I have that the technology comes in waves, and waves used to come slower. That's why we did not realize that changes happening in the world are due to technology. But over last 400-500 years, the technology waves have become faster. The industrial revolution, and then now the information revolution, and then now AI revolution. Each time, the technology waves are becoming faster, which means the wealth creation becomes faster. And for me, the next, like it said that the industrial revolution created more wealth than what that was created 10,000 years before that. And my hypothesis is that next 50 years will create more wealth than that were created 10,000, last 10,000 years, right? So effectively, next 50 years, who will create that wealth? Technology people, young people, demographics, and everything that is there in India, right? So you are a very technologically advanced country, but at a very low per capita income. And so most people willy-nilly will have to, and the other side is that earlier the wealth used to be physical. You had to have brilliant looking buildings and roads and ports, because that infrastructure allowed you to produce more. Today, the wealth, and increasingly more, the wealth is going to be dematerial, or what you can't touch, the gaming and
virtual
wealth. It's like, I give example saying, so 10,000 years back, who was the most wealthy person in the country? The guy who had the maximum number of goats or cows, right? And 500 years back or 1,000 years back, who was the most rich person? Who had the maximum amount of land and also goats and cows?
Gold.
And then who was the most rich person? Who had the largest industry, right? So the wealth of who can produce, right? But if the goods are going to be virtual, you can produce here and sell anywhere, because it's not stoppable
physically,
right? You can't stop them. You don't even know whether it is being made or not, right? So it's a very interesting conundrum. And for me, India is very virtual in our own minds, right? Our philosophy, our ways of thinking are very abstract. And that is where I think Indians have done so well in programming, in BPOs and everything. And they will do so well because the wealth is going to be virtual. The experience is, even the biosciences, the one which moves in your body, and the DNAs have to be changed and whatever, right? So effectively, it's going to be a very different world. And if basically in next 50 years will create more wealth than what was created in 10,000 years. And young population of India, 17% of world population, but 20% of young population will create 25-30% of the new wealth that is going to be created. And that's why, for me, it's a very, very interesting time to be in. You will see a lot of growth. Of course, the life quality, they've achieved better. $65,000 per person. They have a better quality of life, right? But they are on the way down. China, at $18,000 with declining population, they are on way down because they are showing $3 trillion of wealth for outsiders, and they have $80 trillion of balance sheet debt in their banks inside, which is yet to be resolved, right? And that's what happened to Japan in their banking system in 80s, which is still getting. So for me, China is into what I call Japan mode of 1980s. In China of 2025 and Japan of 1985, there are many similarities. And so that is how I see that there are many things which we can discuss for very long. But India is in a great position, and every investor has to understand that the wealth gets created not by noise. It is by signals. Right? When you are fine-tuning your radio, you are even now on FM radio, you go and suddenly the music comes, right? So for me, the world is about signals, and what we worry is the noise, because that's what television bombards you, the social media bombards. The noise has become unbearable. And if you can't figure out a signal out of that noise, then you have to go to an expert who can figure out that signal, right? So that is where I see that all what is happening today, tariff war, India, Pakistan, this, that, it's not that the Pakistan thing did not happen before, right? And today also, once it happens, people take it into their stride. So I explained to somebody in one of the international conferences last month that there are, I think Dick Cheney or somebody said, that there are known knowns, and then there are known unknowns, and then there are unknown unknowns, right? And so when it happens first time, like COVID came, it was unknown, but in a month's time, people figured out that is now it has become known unknown. So you figured out the discount, and that's where what happened due to the Pakistan's issues in Kashmir. Even the final most outcome, whatever comes, is broadly covered in today's price. And today, the day we are speaking, the markets in India are up, right? So while saying is that the people who see the future, that's where they go and buy. In fact, FPIs, the foreign investors, have started actually investing more now in last 2-3 weeks compared to they were taking out money before that, and suddenly they have started investing more, right? So that's where you have to understand how this noise is what distract us, that signal, but who will get that signal or will catch that signal is the issue.
So on that positive signal, let us talk about NSE now, the institution that you have been associated with. It's almost more than 3 decades now, and you have been associated for the global situations have changed, technology had changed, as you rightly mentioned. The approach of people, common people in India towards markets have changed. So how do you see this journey? How do you see this evolution of NSE and in general and stocks?
See, when I started working on NSE, it was in 1992. I was 24-year-old engineer MBA, and I was working for a bank, and my bank was sold to set up NSE. That's how. And since I was only engineer, I had to do the technology. I was the youngest person, so I had to do what other people did not want to do, including bringing tea, coffee, and things like that. But being only Gujarati, I had to also do the stock market, right? So broadly, the technology is a satellite telecom and screen-based trading. All those things I had to work on, and then it was more what I call procedural, that you have to implement the project, right? When I look back philosophically, what did we achieve? When NSE started working in 1994, India had probably 1 million investors, 10 lakh, maximum 10-15 lakh investors, largely in Mumbai, Delhi, a little bit of Calcutta, Chennai, but it was not there in most places. And India's total market capitalization, that is the wealth represented by stock market, was around 3.8 lakh crore, 4 lakh crore. So which is today, after 30 years, 1994 and 2025, so 31 years, what we have achieved is that market capitalization has gone to literally 400 lakh crore, 100 times more. And number of people has gone up from 10 lakh to now 11 crore,
Mm.
right? And 8.5 crore households, which means 20% of all households now invest in India's stock market directly or indirectly via mutual funds also. So that's a large achievement. Why did this happen?
Mm.
When I look back, because when you were implementing, you did not realize the impact your work had or work would have in the future. By quirk of fate, I have come back to lead the same organization. And you realize the impact it has created. What are markets? Markets are what I call places to manufacture trust. Trust of whom?
Mm.
Trust of people who are having savings.
Mhm.
Into whom? Into India's entrepreneurs.
Mm.
Of course, they have to have trust in India's parliament, India's judiciary, India's regulators, India's stock exchange, but largely it is about India's entrepreneurs and India's potential.
Ability to deliver.
Right. So for me, last 30 years, what happened that had not happened, say 45 years before, is because we created that transparency, that fairness using technology. India, I mean, NSE was the first digital public infrastructure of India, out in open. 12th July 95, I opened the first terminal outside of Mumbai in Coimbatore. It's there in the photographs. I was sent because nobody wanted to go, and my boss said, "You set up all this technology, you go." So that's how I had gone to inaugurate that. But when I placed an order, see, Mumbai guys were used to at least meeting each other, talking on phones and doing dealing. When I placed that order, the owner's father was like 70, 75 year old. And I said, "Now, sir, your transaction is done in less than 2 seconds." He could not believe. He thought it was a magic. And for me, that magic of technology, that transparency, that fairness, that speed of execution made India what it is today. 1994, there were not many computers. My bank itself, all of us were opposing computerization because it will take away our jobs. Right? Very few people had fear computers or even seen computers. Telephone lines would take 5 years to come to your house, and to make it work, you have to do a lot of other things. In that milieu, to give a continuously working, real-time, less than 2 second system across India was the, what I call, taste of technology to people for public use. And that is how India became IT superpower. The mother of IT in India is NSE. Later on, Infosys, Wipro, TCS became larger. Many of them used to bring their potential customers or Y2K to show NSE saying, "We can do this." And that's how NSE has been the first public digital infrastructure of India, first fintech of India, the largest fintech of any type in the world, because on a good day, we'll get 2,000 crore orders in a day. Today also, UPI gets around 1,500 crore orders in a month. We get it in 6 hours. Right now, our response time is 100 microseconds. 1 second as a million microseconds, 10 lakh microseconds. And we are now trying to go to nanoseconds, that is 10 raised to minus 9 range and stuff like that. So this is the highest of high tech you have. But more using that high tech, we created that trust of transparency. If you had to ask for a company's information in 1992, it'll take you very long and you will not get any information. Companies would invariably not give even once a year information. Sometimes they will make it 18 months, sometimes 24 months. Today, every quarter, you get information. Every material event, they give you information. So the corporate governance standards have improved so drastically today. India is among the literally pretty much the top country in terms of corporate governance framework, in terms of public disclosures, and many innovations we brought. But that trust is very difficult to create, easy to give up.
Yes.
Right? It's very ephemeral. And that's where, for me, what NSE has achieved for India. Now, we have achieved today, okay, you can have laurels. It's like Sachin Tendulkar's 100 centuries. But will you make the next century or next 10,000 centuries is not? How does India leverage that trust market? Say, I'll tell you, poor countries per capita income are not supposed to have well-functioning capital markets. There are books written that poor people don't save. And if they save, they don't trust their brothers. How will they trust somebody sitting 2,000 kilometers away and put in money, 1,000 rupees into his business or her business and assume that he will make profits, not siphon away, give you that small dividend. It's a great leap of faith that an investor sitting in Jorhat or Dibrugarh or Srinagar or Andaman Nicobar. Today, I have investors in all pin codes except 28. 19,400 pin codes. 28 pin codes, out of which probably 25 are airports where you can't stay full day. That's why I can't do KYC. I have investor across. Why? It's because we have created, not me, but as a society, we have created trust. And that's what I say, that in our 78 years of independence, what did we earn? We earned trust of investors into our entrepreneurs. And that is so beautiful because that trust is now allowing small youngsters who never had a hope in life to create their own companies, become entrepreneurs, become large. Nandan Nilekani, Narayan Murthy, Dhirubhai Ambani, Binny Bansal, they all now have a hope that someday, even if angel investors, venture capitalists are not willing to fund me, there are 11 crore other Indians. Some of them will invest in my dreams. Small little companies are coming, raising funds, and they are tomorrow's Infosys, tomorrow's Wipro, right? So that is where, for me, this particular place is so much more important for India's future, that if India has to grow and become a superpower in economics, it will happen on the back of this place.
But general Indian mindsets are, as you said, even economic research suggests that traditional societies, relatively poorer societies, they have a tendency of saving rather than investing. Either you save in terms of FDs or your provident funds or gold, and that is still a very popular kind of savings. So, how did you, NSE made this possible, creating this? What were the special initiatives to reach out to the creating that trust factor in the investors?
See, broadly speaking, I think the returns. See, what happens is, life is about demonstration. If you had invested in a stock and you got benefited over 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or a particular index, then your friends, some friends will follow you after 5, some friends will follow after 10, because you talk in circles and you say, I have done this, and that's how. Sometimes you want to hide, but mostly people demonstrate things, right? And that's how this demonstration of the equities market giving higher returns than the FDs or gold or real estate, and very liquid. See, if you have real estate, it's very difficult to actually figure out, right? Whereas when the COVID happened and Mr. Modi came on television, I think March 28th or something, at 8 p.m., he said, due to COVID, we are closing down the country from next moment, right? Within a minute, I wrote saying, my exchange will continue to remain open as usual. Even regulators called up saying, did you get a call from Delhi that you are saying this? I said, no, they have given the feedback last week that they had made stock broking and stock markets as essential services. Why did they do it? It's because they want us to keep open, because in the most difficult time of person's life, if you can't even give it, whatever, 50% discount, if you can't give that liquidity, then people are going to go to other assets. Gold, you take out your ring and give it to anyone, he might be 10,000 rupees ring, but he might at least give you 100 rupees. That liquidity is so much more important. Or FD, you can break mostly any time unless bank is in trouble. Stock markets have now given better returns. They are more liquid. Over the last 30 years, like we just celebrated Nifty's 30 years. And I was just telling my people, give me the numbers. The gold has given 7.7% CAGR, compounded returns. The Nifty has given, with dividend and all, around 11.9% returns. Even in dollar terms, S&P 500 has given lesser returns than Nifty in dollar terms.
Oh.
So many times I used to say that um, US required Warren Buffett, India required Nifty. It's available to all of us, right? We don't have to pay them very large fees, which Warren Buffett must be earning. Here, it's basically in public domain. And so Nifty, when I was creating, I did not think it will have so much impact. It's like a measurement. Like in the body, you have temperature, we have thermometer. So index is actually a measurement, of sort.
Health,
But
health of your economy.
right? And health of economy, but more about hope and things like that, right? So that's where you realize that sometimes what you do um, mechanically sometimes has much larger impact than what was ever intended, right? And that's where, for me, where we have come in a way, in a less philosophical way, by evolving ourselves very fast. We are today best in technology in the world, best in corporate governance, best in reaching out to people. 11 crore, if we were a country, we would be 15th largest in the world, right? And the market capitalization wise, we are now, after US, China and Japan, fourth largest country. And in China, whenever markets go down, government has to go and buy. In India, nobody does that, right? So effectively, we have the most vibrant markets. I mean, UK is now half our size. Germany, France, 6, 7 countries put together have market capital which is competing with India's, right? And so you can see how that societal trust builds, and it has been done using technology. And then India has, of course, used that technology for Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile and tax collection and GST and everything. But it all started here. And now, when you look at it philosophically, when India has to grow, I have another hypothesis that capitalism was not a word. It was created by Karl Marx to contrast
with
communism. And so capitalists required a lot of capital to create more capital. But you require a lot of capital. And India was perennially starved over last 78 years of our independence, because 1,000 years of sort of taking money out, we had become poor. We had capital, no capital. And that's why we couldn't even grow, even if we wanted to grow faster. But today, the newer technologies allow you to create billions of dollars of businesses with very little capital involved. So I call it capitalism without capital. And there, Indians have now come to a level, at least some of us, who are able to invest in other people. And that is where this kind of platforms are so much more important. That if capitalism without capital and technology waves are two hypotheses which are going to create that great wealth for the world and naturally for India, then the trust markets which NSE has created are going to be absolutely important for the country and for the world.
Sir, when NSE was started and as you said, Nifty was launched almost in 92, 94 scenario, Indian economy was just opening up, from this quasi-socialist kind of mindset. Then we have seen a digital boom, telecom sector opening up, and then digitally we are going mad. Now we are heading towards a new kind of technological revolution, as you mentioned about AI. And artificial intelligence is going to impact our lives in more drastic manner and more faster coming days. So how do you see the kind of impact that will have on stock markets and economy in the future?
The way I look at it is, see, when electricity came 100 years back, who would have thought that it will become part of your life in a all comprehensive ways, right? We are speaking this way also, using electricity in literally 10, 15, 20 different ways, right? It has become part of life. And it still has mishaps. It's not that it doesn't have mishaps, right? And that is true with even shoveling. That people used to do digging with shovels, and then mechanical digger came, what they call JCB. And people thought people will have less sort of jobs who are in digging construction. Instead, they started actually digging more, right? So effectively, there is going to be some change in the skills that are required. So people who are doing programming, today, my son himself has created a software which you tell in a normal natural language and say this particular language, you create the software of that type. It broadly gives you the code using AI. And so you had to remember syntax in programming, coding and all. Now you may not be requiring, but you will be requiring probably doing 10 times more programming or 100 times more programming. That happened to even stock markets. In the best of days, in the floor-based BSE, we used to do not more than 10,000 trades a day. Because if you did 10,000 trades a day, to manage them was impossible. Today, on a good day, I do 30 crore trades. Right? So, imagine the kind of scale that you can achieve. And of course, you have to change the skills. Some of the people who were floor-based people, some of them lost their jobs. Some of them actually tuned themselves to new reality.
Upgrade themselves.
And that's what will have to happen. But overall, this is the best time for India to adapt whichever AI models are there, wherever they come from, start using them, create more useful things for the world. Right? And of course, if you can create foundational model, very good. We should create our own. But we have to start using it. And Indians, for me, when you say Google is making its AI, it's actually being done here in India. Or OpenAI, large portion of it must be happening in India. And many other models, it's just that it's not, IP is not with us. But otherwise, Indians are going to be at the forefront of this AI revolution. At the same time, being aware of the issues that will come up about our own personal skills, about some of the companies which have done very well in a different type of world. They will have to reshape themselves, give 10 times probably more benefits to their customers vis-a-vis what they were giving till now, and adapt to more newer tools and things like that. But what it took, say, 100 years for electricity to come to the rest of the world, or 60 years for television, or 40 years for a mobile phone, or say 3 years for a TikTok, this might happen in a much faster. Right?
Almost parallel.
So that's how I say that. And many more new ways of creating value of experience. By the way, what humans actually do are experiences. And how do you create experiences using virtual things is what is going to be the next wave. Of course, physicality is also required, like exoskeleton and drones and robots and everything. But large portion of that will have the brains, which is virtual, right? So will come out of this kind of thing. And Indians today are the most adept and most attuned to taking advantage. And it will be an opportunity. Of course, it's a threat. If we don't take that opportunity, we will lose.
Sir, another important question when it comes to markets is the way standards and rating agencies have their own parameters. Most of them, like, we see in media, for in terms of, the free speech, free press index, India will be somewhere, down in the ranking. Whether the food or hunger index, somewhere we were below Afghanistan or Sri Lanka. Or so similarly in financial market also, the standards and rating agencies, have very negative perceptions and inbuilt mechanism to show India, what you call in your terms A or A minus or those kind of ratings. So how are we, how should we take this as a challenge and create our own parameters, one, or challenge those parameters and overcoming those parameters, because otherwise it is going to always impact the investment scenario in the larger terms.
See, I'll tell you, there are many complexities. Once an index gets created, index is a measurement, right? And when you pollute it ideologically or otherwise, then that index loses some credibility, right? And so many indexes you mentioned about this freedom of press and these, they've lost their credibility, right? So, and it happens even if you don't say anything, even if you don't oppose. People slowly realize that how come Indians are so smart and so good and they are so raucous, how they don't have press freedom, or how they don't have good health or whatever. So people stop looking at those indexes seriously. Then that becomes entertainment. Some people, of course, take those indexes and write articles, and which is fine. But I don't think we should take it to heart. The credit rating agency has little more sort of say, but again, they've come out of a particular milieu, particular culture, and also they've been uh, experiencing a particular way of living where, say, European Union, even during the worst of crisis of global financial, Greece and Italy and all were in difficult times, and still they did not fail because they had a backing of the European Union. So that's called credit enhancement and all. But broadly speaking, I fully agree with your perspective that a lot of this trade
Still,
rating,
after so much of change in the last 2-3 decades, we still feature somewhere in B.
but for me, it's the other way around. Today, see, if you go with my hypothesis, and it is true, India has grown with very little foreign capital, right? If you look back in last 10 years, 20 years, how much of foreign investment has, foreign,
that is one aspect.
not that foreign, not investment in terms of FDI, but in terms of borrowing,
Yes.
has not come. Because now, if India has to grow, it doesn't require that kind of capital. Then this credit rating agencies have no meaning, because they are trying to, what are they trying to say? That this particular project being rated will give you back the money on its own or not, or from parents or not. Other than that, it's just an opinion. And their opinion, whatever about A or A star or A plus, in global financial crisis was found to be completely useless. In fact, they have been saved from multi-billion dollars or multi-trillion dollar court suits because of the way the systems work, because they are being used also in a way political tools, right? But for me, the future growth of companies and economies, if they manage their finances well, which India has done over the last 10 years, they may not even require that type of capital. And India has now become sufficient to channelize its savings into productive capital, like what we have done using NSE platform. And so for me, sometimes what we think was important when we grew up 30 years back, today is not that important, right? You might have seen in your life that when you were a young kid, your neighbor had a Bajaj scooter and you were not having even a cycle. That was a dream thing. Today, okay, scooter is nice, but it's not that important, right? So that is how I see this. These are all.
I'm fine with my bicycle, perhaps.
Right. So, and also millions of people have scooters. India produces now more than 1 crore two-wheelers now. And so for me, many things which we consider very important. So we have to also start, in a way, becoming less sensitive to this kind of political nitpicking and pricking, and more important on what are strategic for the future. Otherwise, we'll focus more time on things which are irrelevant. Why would we focus on such people, right? That is how I would see.
Now you are talking, as good that you are speaking about the future. There is a talk about the dream of Viksit Bharat and 2047, and some kind of goal setting sort of thing about Atmanirbharta, and simultaneously there is a talk about this new emerging world order and de-dollarization of economy. So how do you see this goal of Viksit Bharat 2047? Some parameters you already talked about in terms of per capita income and all those things. But what are the ways we can achieve actually those goals? What, according to you, should be the content of, not just slogan, but the content of Atmanirbhar and Viksit Bharat? And what can be the possible impediments?
See, one issue is per capita income is an average, right? It's like a depth in a lake.
Yeah.
That you say the average depth is 4 feet. You start walking and you get drowned because the average is not the reality. So how do we take people along? How do we make that Antyodaya,
Participate,
that last person's life more pleasant, right? And that is, I think, broadly speaking, if you look at last 10, 11 years, what I call a modicum of social security is being built by way of Atal Pension Yojana, Ayushman Bharat Yojana, free gas, free education, and many other things, housing for the poor, and so many other things. So for me, of course, free food. Why I'm telling you this, when I was young, I would always sort of worry that how will we feed our people? Kala handi. When I was young, people used to die in hunger. And almost every year. Right? When this COVID came, and then it was announced that we'll provide free food. I was so happy that today, whether people consider us rich or not, I have become rich in my mind as a country, that I am able to feed 80 crore people every day. It is such a great achievement, right? From 1970s to 1920, we have, in a way, for me, those are the achievements which we need to also work on, in addition to trying to increase the average, but also the lowest person's life. And for me, it's actually happening as we talk, because of the fact that, like you said, de-dollarization, the vacuum does not exist in economics. And so unless there is a new equivalent of dollar comes, it's not easy to shift, right? So whatever people may say, it may come down in importance, but it will have its own importance till the time the new framework, which is equally good, equally competing, and things like that comes up. It is possible that Indian rupee might become that over, say, next 20, 30 years or 50 years. And so we have to be also aware of our aspirations, and that why not Indian rupee becomes the standard for the world to actually do that transactions in. And why they do it is because, there are like millions of things which are required, but we can work on it over next 30, 40 years and actually make India more. Many times in the same context, people tell me that, when will Indian rupee become one equal to a dollar? I said, I can do it tomorrow. But then will you be able to sell your services to the rest of the world? What you require is jobs. Like today, Japan has 150 yen per dollar. They are not feeling ashamed. Why should I be feeling ashamed? And it's easy to do it. But it is actually a false pride. Where you have to have pride is your average income, but also the median income, also the lowest person's life, how that thing works. And I have no doubt in my mind that if we continue on the path which we have taken over last 10 years, we will be a reasonably prosperous country in next 25 to 50 years. There is no doubt in my mind, because we are non-violent country. Internally also, we are a democracy. So any large problems that get resolved by way of elections, and also many other ways of negotiations. And so
always conversation and peaceful ways of resolving conflicts.
And of course, technology. That is the core, right? So, and like day before yesterday, there was the news that Apple is going to now import to US all phones only from India, not from China, next year onwards. Which is, India currently exports, I think, 10-15%. If it becomes 10 times more, it will be, and there are many other people who are coming to India. So industrialization is going to come, but it's coming even at the higher level, which was not even thought possible even 4-5 years back. So everywhere, India is going to work harder, but it's not that only Modi has to do and all of us have to keep on criticizing him or say that you did not do this, you did not that. It's basically everyone, what he says, sabka saath, sabka vikas, and sabka vishwas,
sabka prayas.
Sabka prayas. So for me, sabka prayas is more important, because a leader can only motivate you, he can guide you, he can have policies, but all of us have to work hard. And that is where I think sometimes we are more discussion oriented, less work oriented. And I think we have to become that. But I have no doubt in my mind that we will be a reasonably prosperous country going in 2047.
Thank you for those insights. Last question, sir. I know means with a person with a kind of experience and knowledge you have, I can keep on talking. But due to constraint of time, let us come to a bit of personal question. You come from Gujarat, reasonably humble family. Uh, 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 you know, today there is a lot of talk about backwardness in terms of social terms or in regional terms. Uh, but you know people like you are kind of models where coming from a very humble background and then completing your engineering and now reaching up to this level of becoming MD and CEO of National Stock Exchange. So how do you see this journey? And what would you tell the young aspirant Indians? What should they do right so that instead of just looking for government doing something for them, they can constructively do something for themselves, for their families, and the nation.
Yeah, I think, again, for me, the 78 years of India's independence, I consider as the golden period for the backward classes in India.
Hmm.
Nowhere in last thousands of years of history, backward classes had such great opportunities. Uh, and we can thank our builders of constitution, our basically framers of constitution, and also people who have come after that, including all institutions who have protected the essence of that social justice. And in some ways, it's very easy to get dragged into feeling bad about coming from a humble background and feel that it's somebody else's job to pull you up. Nobody owes you anything. You have to work hard. And naturally, if you come from a poor family or a lower caste, you have to work probably 5 times harder. But today, using technology, uh, your knowledge, education, uh, you have a very good chance. And in some ways, people like me are an example where that India today gives you good chances, right? And there is, in a way, the systemic discrimination you can feel bad about, but today's India is better than, say, it was 25 years back, better than 50 years back, better than 75 years back, better than 100 years back, and tomorrow's India will be even better. So, idea is, how do you prepare yourselves? How do you work harder? How do you become a solution provider to your society? And today's India does not believe in all the past things. You might still feel there are undercurrents, I don't deny that. But overall, today's India is actually a very, very secular country, even in that way, that people who can give results get appreciated and get rewarded, and people who don't get results uh, will go down from their high purchase. So, if you, the way I look at it is, a rich person's child gets to buy many lottery tickets. But all of them may not work out because they have not used their smartness. And a poor person's child may have to work harder to buy even one lottery ticket. But if he or she is smart, they will become that billionaire. And I have seen so many examples of billionaires becoming millionaires and nobody's coming from road becoming billionaires. So today's India, today's world situation is giving you many, many opportunities. Be positive. See, it's uh, very easy to feel negative because this is a poor country. Facilities are not there. We are still in many ways constrained by things. But individual initiatives today are much more appreciated than ever before. And that is what I would say, that people like me uh, are examples that a positive work, working with the society, and everyone wants to improve India. If you think other people don't, that's a mistake. Everyone wants to improve India, and everyone wants to also improve the conditions of the poorest. So it's just that the means have to be there, and that's why, in some ways, uh, the efforts you may think may not reach you or not reach you the way it is. But if you deserve and you work harder, probably you might have to work harder than others, which is fine. Ultimately, you have a lot of time, right? You can blame somebody or improve yourself. And I would say improve yourself and move forward. India will give you chances.
Thank you. Improve yourself is the mantra that uh, uh, Shri Ashish Chauhan ji has given to us. And you know, when many people are talking about the tariff war and its impact on economy, or the way, though India is a bright spot, is almost a global consensus, how should we look at it, and what should be our priorities for next 25 years? I hope we got great insights from MD and CEO of National Stock Exchange, Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan ji. Ashish ji, thanks a lot for sparing your time and talking to Organizer, and I hope this conversation will give new kind of confidence about Indian markets and about India's future to our investors. Thank you very much.